Congratulate the election.
Prime Minister, do you regret calling Mr. Stuffy a bigot?
Welcome to WatchMojoUK, and today we're counting down our picks for the most unbelievable blunders on TV news in the British Isles.
If you're now governed by European Commissioners,
I think people will be entertained, Nigel, to hear you
and that
talking
may be too
about
inconvenient.
this.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Number 10. Flipping the bird.
Every now and then there's always one mistake. That was it now.
You'd be amazed at how often this seems to happen over at the BBC. It seems that presenters get far too complacent about when they are and aren't on air and take too many risks with what they're doing behind the scenes.
Live from London, this is BBC News.
Most recently, this affected Mariam Moshiri, who was filmed sticking up her middle finger at the camera before presenting the news. She later made a statement that it was part of a private joke with people in the studio and hadn't intended for it to be seen on air as she counted down, with a clip released to corroborate this.
Live from London.
Similarly, a few years ago, weatherman Thomas Schaffenacker also found himself in hot water for flipping the bird on telly.
It'll be 100% accurate and provide all the detail you could possibly want. I've just seen Thomas Schaffenacker preparing for it, so I'm not entirely...
Number 9. Guru-murthy versus Hollywood. It's a bit unusual that Channel 4 keeps sending one of its top news reporters, Krishnan Guru-murthy, to do interviews at press junkets designed to promote films.
Are we promoting a movie? To me, the thing is that I'm certainly not going to backpedal on anything I've said, but I wouldn't say I'm a Republican or a Liberal or a Democrat.
This happened with both Quentin Tarantino and Robert Downey Jr., who found themselves rowing with him when he began asking difficult questions. They were both under the impression that they'd be getting easy-to-answer puff-piece questions about their upcoming movies, only to be quizzed by Guru-murthy about violence in media and past addictions.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Are you... Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, you're right.
RDJ famously walked out of his interview, while Tarantino continued to argue for many agonizing minutes.
This is a commercial for the movie, make no mistake.
Well, you got interviews.
Yeah.
So you don't want to talk about anything serious?
I don't want to talk about what you want to talk about.
Number 8. Liit On Truss.
You said earlier that I'm not left or right. I know that there's been criticism in the Mail on Sunday today about lefty, liberal, wokey comedians on the BBC. I'm actually very right-wing.
In 2022, Joe Lycett was interviewed by the most impartial BBC pundit of them all, Laura Kuenssberg, about Liz Truss, who was there in the studio as well to be interviewed as our newest Prime Minister.
I thought she was very clear. She gave great, clear answers. I know exactly what she's up to.
Lycett was brought on to add an interesting dynamic to the show and offer a different perspective. But apparently, producers didn't bank on this stand-up comedian doing any comedy, making this a failure on their part.
They're going to feel...
point, Joe, forgive me. There's a
I'm not being
serious
sarcastic,
point. She said that there was a big package of help coming this week.
Lycett, by comparison, came out smelling of roses after sarcastically announcing that he's now right-wing and loves the Tory party. He also applauded Truss audibly while she was being interviewed.
That we're sort of at the dregs of what they've got available, and that Liz Truss is sort of like the backwash of the available MPs. I wouldn't say that because I'm incredibly right-wing.
Number 7. Empty chair.
Good evening and welcome to BBC News. I'm Martine Croxall.
Many times we've talked about the blunder where Hugh Edwards was broadcast sitting in complete silence for 4 solid minutes before the news bulletins actually began. But that was an on-screen presenter saying nothing. What about an off-screen presenter who found herself in front of the wrong camera? This is what happened to Martine Croxall as the camera slowly zoomed in on the empty chair she'd left behind.
I'm just going to move back to the main set. I know this has happened before, but here we are.
According to Croxall, bloopers like this have happened before, too. It makes you wonder why nobody was making sure she was in front of the correct camera before the live broadcast began.
If I sidle in, you can pretend that you haven't noticed.
Number 6. Nadine Dorries. You're always in for something strange when former Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries is wrangled for an interview.
Have you spoken to the Prime Minister recently in the last 24 hours?
Why? Why are you asking me that question?
This baffling interview was conducted with the BBC when Partygate first came to light, where Dorries was grilled by Charlie State on BBC Breakfast.
I'd like to know.
We've communicated.
She fell apart at the lightest questioning though, with State beginning by asking her whether she'd been in touch with Boris Johnson.
What has he communicated to you?
Well, I'm not going to tell you the extent of my communications with the Prime Minister.
We can't speculate on why she was behaving like this, though everybody unanimously suspected the same thing, but it does look bizarre. We wonder what Carrie had to say about all this when she saw it.
I'd say his mood was very, very positive, extremely positive.
Number 5, the gorilla. Another classic BBC breakfast moment. It was Charlie State again on the sofa, this time with long-time co-host Naga Munchetti.
It's 6:30, it's Friday the 14th of October. Let's tell you what's coming up on the programme.
They opened the show by talking about Nicola Sturgeon, still First Minister of Scotland at the time, only the Beeb accidentally ran stock footage of a gorilla instead.
We're going to be joined by Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. We'll talk to her about plans for a second referendum.
State was quick to apologise and explain that they also had an item coming up about a gorilla who'd escaped from London Zoo, and the wrong footage had appeared on screen.
I'm sorry, we've very clearly run the wrong pictures of that particular sequence.
Don't worry though, the gorilla was eventually tranquilised and brought back into the zoo safely before it could break the BBC's impartiality rules by giving its opinion on the SNP. Number 4, Up the Ra. This happened on Irish television, but it involved a catastrophic blunder made online by one Nigel Farage.
But I hope you enjoy a few pints with the lads tonight. Up the Ra.
Farage was paid the princely sum of £87 to abandon his principles and raise a glass to the IRA, announcing Up the Ra in a birthday greeting that was subsequently posted everywhere. He was grilled by Claire Byrne on RTE1 later on, wholly embarrassing himself by clearly not understanding Irish history and having no idea why the Irish spent so long trying to kick Britain out.
And why don't you ask yourselves in Dublin a question? Why did you fight the British? Why did Irish nationalists fight the British for 500 years?
He'd already apologised for what he'd said, apparently not even realising he was toasting the Provosts, but failed to brush up on basic history or contemporary Irish politics.
I know that you apologised for the birthday greeting which you delivered in the last couple of days, but I want people to see just how much you know about the history and culture on this island.
Number 3, Fridgegate. It became increasingly difficult in the lead up to the 2019 general election to get the Prime Minister in a room with journalists to ask him some proper questions, particularly if your name was Piers Morgan.
Swaney, shout at him. To come in our programme so far. Swaney, shout at him. Say, come on, Good Morning Britain, Prime Minister, if you get the chance. Give him the full barrels.
Morgan was still hosting Good Morning Britain at the time and sent correspondent Jonathan Swain to interview Boris Johnson while he helped out with the milk round one morning.
Morning, Prime Minister. Will you come on Good Morning Britain, Prime Minister?
Rather than speak to Swain, the PM's minder got in the way and swore at him, live on camera, and then Johnson retreated into a fridge. He then promised numerous times that he'd appear on GMB to be interviewed by Piers and Susanna Reid, but that never happened.
Right, he's been taken inside, into the freezer. He's gone into the fridge.
There's a bunker.
It's very heroic work, mate. So far, isn't it?
Number 2, Guy Gorman.
So what does this all mean for the industry and the growth of music online? Well, Guy Cooney is the editor of the technology website News Wireless.
A case of mistaken identity like no other, this BBC News blunder remains one of the funniest live TV moments ever. On the 8th of May 2006, Guy Gorman wrongly appeared on a live BBC News interview when he was mistaken for Guy Cooney. Cooney was an expert in technology, needed to give his thoughts on the Apple versus Apple lawsuit, in which the American tech giant was sued by the Beatles.
I'm very surprised to see this verdict to come on me, because I was not expecting that.
Gorman wasn't a technology journalist though, he was just a regular person, there to be given a job interview in the IT department. He didn't even realise what was happening until they had him on air. Worse, Gorman didn't even get the job.
A big surprise.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Number 1, Bigot Gate.
And then I just said to the police officer, "Is Gordon Brown on that coach?" And he says, "No, he's round the corner there." And I said, "Oh, right, I'll go and have a word with Gordon."
Was this the scandal that sealed Gordon Brown's fate? Probably not, as he was already an unpopular Prime Minister, but it definitely didn't help. While on the campaign trail in 2010, Brown was cornered by a member of the public, Gillian Duffy, who had a lot of questions for him about immigration. He talked to her briefly and tried to relay her concerns about Eastern Europeans, but called her a bigot while he was still wired up to his Sky News microphone.
What did she say?
Oh, everything. She's just a sort of bigoted woman. Said she used to be Labour.
The blunder has lived in infamy and is still one of the main things people remember about Brown and his few years in office. He later had to sit down and apologise to Duffy in person.
He were in here 45 minutes or talking to him. He then went to see the Queen about something.
Let us know in the comments what the weirdest thing you've ever seen on the news is.
Your foot's starting to jump a little bit. You better get to your next question.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojoUK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.